Hi, my name is TaraRose Macuch, and I am the owner and lead designer for Wild Heart Dirt here in Austin, Texas. Really excited today. We are going to do some fall planting. We're here at the Zilker Botanical Garden, and we're going to add some new additions to the Grow Green garden beds. So let's plant. So when Katie and Denise had asked Wild Heart Dirt for us to come in and give them a design and sort of reassess, give those Grow Green display beds a facelift, first and foremost, we like working in phases. And one of the phases that is crucial, I believe, when you're going to give a bed or a space or a backyard a facelift is the cleanup phase, and sort of deciding what needs to stay, what should stay, and what can go. Often, we put something in the ground and it just isn't working in that space, or it's overcrowded. It wasn't planted with enough room around it. Although I do like to plant close here and there, because I do like that tapestry that happens with plants when they sort of mix into each other, and one piece sort of blends into the other piece. I think it's gorgeous. But we do need to be mindful of making sure that plants have enough space around them to grow to their full potential. So when Katie and Denise asked for the design, we came in, we decided what plants should go, which ones should stay. Some of the ones that we chose to stay are, classic, beautiful plants that are in there. And, we were here for a couple of days cleaning out both front beds and, getting rid of things that just weren't working. And we had the opportunity to really, play with the light, to see the light. In the time that we were there doing the cleanup phase, we were able to see the light from the beginning of the morning all the way to the end, late afternoon. And it was a really good opportunity for us to understand how the light works in those beds. Also, by taking out a lot of the material that we took out, we were able to sort of just bring in some air, really. It was overcrowded, and it needed some zhuzhing, as I call it. So some of the plant choices that were really important as far as next phase, when we got into choosing plants and whatnot, it was very important, and the ask from Katie and Denise in the Grow Green community was to make sure that anybody who walks by these beds would be able to recognize these plants that are in our plant guide, in the Grow Green plant guide. I know that I use that booklet often. I think it's a great tool to use with clients. It's a great tool to use with your crew. It's an educational opportunity, to really point out things. Often, we may have people that work for us that aren't familiar with certain things, and they can reference it as well. And it's great. It's a great opportunity for people who don't necessarily know what a Barbados cherry looks like, or where it should be planted in the yard, or how much sun it needs, or when it flowers. That all being said, we definitely used a couple of different nurseries here in town as far as using for our plant selection. And we used a wholesale nursery and a couple other local nurseries nearby. And often you have an idea of what you want to plant, and you may have even created a design on paper. You get to the nursery and it's not there. So what do? You're gonna have to think quick in the moment. I really believe that, part of the planting process and the selection process is being able to think quick and be able to be flexible in that if that certain plant isn't there, what can I do? There's a few different times a year that we plant. We plant in the spring and the fall here in Austin. And that being said, you have other opportunities to add to your beds. So, what else? Some of the plant choices. I definitely had a lot to work, a lot of space to work with. We have 2 main beds, and it has sort of the full spectrum of light in these beds, which is pretty awesome as a gardener. It's always a blast to be able to plant everything from full shade to dappled light to part sun to full sun, and that covers the entire spectrum in a bed that you are planting. For me, it's an awesome opportunity to really challenge myself and figure out, you know, how that all will blend and work well together. So some of the choices that I chose for the shady parts of the bed are some autumn fern, coral berries, spider lily, and then we move into sun and part shade with, there's a gorgeous Macuch orchid, one of my favorite small trees. It's a great understory tree, probably gets to be about 12 feet tall, maybe 15 in some other conditions, but we did some wild indigo, white boneset or mist flower. We have a spirea bush in there, a white bridal wreath spirea bush. It's a really lovely plant. We also have some creeping germander. Ooh, I love the smell of that stuff. Echinacea, purple coneflower. And then moving on into where it's more, you know, more sunny, more part sun and into full sun. Some Barbados cherry. We have a couple bicolor iris, some Gulf penstemon. We have what else is in there? Let's see. Oh gosh, there's a fantastic black dahlia, Dalia. How do you pronounce that? Sorry. Yeah. So hopefully you get to see some of that. Absolutely. I mean, you know, not every plant, because, you know, when you've got a big design ahead of you and you've maybe got upwards to 100 plants to pick up, you can't, you know, absolutely look at every single pot. But you, as a gardener, you know, or as just a consumer out there buying plants, can absolutely, you know, take the plant from the base there, lift them up out of, or, you know, just massage them a little bit, just to look at it, look at the root system. Is it, you know, is it girdling under there? Is it root bound? Is it pot bound? Are you smelling something that smells off? You know, sometimes plants have been sitting around at a nursery for a very long time, and there's a rotation that happens with plants. You know, so having a sense of, you know, I definitely do that with the big shrubs. Mm-hmm. I absolutely lift stuff up out of the pot and look at them. That Macuch I did the same thing for. But, you know, you just can't do it with every plant. You get a sense of, I think the more you shop with certain nurseries, the more you know which nurseries are good at certain things. I have different nurseries that we shop at throughout Central Texas, and there are certain things that I get from certain nurseries because that's what they do well. And so, you know, and also making a friend at the nursery is such a big deal, you know, because having someone who understands the way that you plant, the things that you like, maybe you need to place an order in advance, that all can happen. You know, having someone at the nursery that you trust and can talk to and talk things through about plants. When something goes wrong, you might need to return something. Building those relationships with people at the nursery, I think, is very important as well, because we gotta work together. I love to plant. I love getting in the dirt. I just love every bit of it. I don't think I've had clean hands in over 15 years. They're like sandpaper. Planting is, you know, there's just nothing like having your hands in the dirt and watching something grow, mm-hmm. and caring for it and being the steward of these beings, you know, these creatures, these amazing things we call plants and trees, you know. You know, as far as planting goes, I always amend, and continually amend throughout the course of that garden lifespan. Always amending the dirt. You know, the soil here is tough to work with. There's a lot of pickaxe involved in a lot of my days.
Yeah.
Having to dig holes. But amending the dirt and adding in some good nutrients. I tend to use a lot of. I absolutely am a big composter. We use a lot of compost. A lot of our clients that we have, I start compost for them, and I just maintain that compost. We maintain their compost for them, and then from there we always have compost to use in all of their beds. So it's a win-win. But as far as if someone doesn't have the compost, I'm a big fan of Happy Frog soil conditioner. I think it's great. It's got all the bat guano and earthworm castings, and it's a nice addition to when you're adding to. Everyone has their favorites. I'm a big mixer of different. I'll take stuff from here and here and here, and until I feel it and feel that the texture and the smell and there's a certain feel that it has when you're like, yeah, this is good dirt. This is plantable. This is usable. Excuse me. And I'm always putting a little bit of aggregate in for drainage, and absolutely a little bit of aggregate, and of course mulching or using pine straw or rock as a whatever you choose to use. One of the things that I think is really an amazing opportunity as a gardener, whether you're really a seasoned gardener or you're just a novice gardener and just getting started, but I think that it's really important, and more so ever than in this day and age, is building your relationship with your plants. You get your plants and you're gonna take care of them. You're gonna steward them. You're gonna maintain them. You're gonna give them a strong, healthy foundation to once you've amended all your beds and prepped your beds, and you're gonna give them the opportunity to thrive. And I think it's really important. And it kind of sounds like a big hippie of me, but I think it's really important to actually, before you plant this plant into the ground, let it know that it's going to be all right. It doesn't have to live in a pot anymore. It doesn't have to be confined. He can stretch his roots. He's going to get water. He's going to get sunshine. He's going to get a cool breeze once in a while, and really respect that plant before putting it in the ground and giving it its new home. Making that kind of connection with a plant, and then for me that also entails grooming the plant, pruning the plant before I put it in the ground. Oftentimes when you take a bunch of plants with you and you throw them in the back of your truck and you bring it to the place that you're going to plant them, you pull them out of the truck and you've got some broken pieces. It's unavoidable. While driving, it happens. Things break. That's your opportunity once you've taken them and you're connecting with that plant. That's your opportunity to prune it and groom it, and make sure that if there are broken little branches, you prune those before you put them in the ground. Some gardeners absolutely do it post planting. I personally like to get that plant ready before I put it in the ground, and then it's less fuss. I fuss before he goes into the ground. Another really important thing that I tell our crew when we do any plant installations, is as far as when you take that plant out of its pot, oftentimes it's quite root bound, and I think I mentioned this before, but we don't know we have a sense of a lot of the growers are in other parts of the country, and so those plants, we do have a fair amount of growers here in Texas, but we get a lot of other plants, adaptive plants that come from other parts of the country, and they come and then they have this long travel, and then they sit at a nursery And then maybe they even go to the next nursery. And so by the time they've gotten to you, they've been through maybe 3 or 4 different hands, and they've been sitting in that pot for a long time. So by taking them out of the pot and sort of, in looking at that root system, I also am a big fan of, I don't just rip. I actually use my hori knife, and I encourage my crew to use the hori knife. It's a really cool Japanese tool. It's like a multifaceted tool. And I actually slice off, because I get a clean slice and then I can plant it straight. I slice off about 1/4. It's just as much as you would ripping, but it's like slicing a piece of cake. I just tip my plant on its side, and you'll see me do it today when you do some of the filming, and I just cut about 1/4 of it off. And then I can allow myself to score the sides instead of ripping through. I feel like I get a cleaner plant that way, and I think it's a pretty efficient process rather than just tearing through. I mean, hey, everybody does it different. We should, you shouldn't just plant straight into the ground from pot straight into the ground. You want that. You want to give the roots an opportunity for that absorption to happen faster and for them to, establish quicker. It's kind of like getting a little haircut. You get a little haircut and your hair is healthy, and then it just, happens quick. Of course, after you plant, it's very important to make sure that you water everything in. And when we say water everything in, give them a good drink. You really want to set them up for success, these plants. I tend to wait till everything is planted so that I'm not crunching around on everything and it doesn't get all very muddy. Yeah. I typically am working at a client, so I try to keep things really tidy as best as I can. But yeah, very important to make sure that everything is watered in. And then also, does the client have irrigation? Is that something that you've discussed with them prior? Are you installing irrigation? And if so, that should happen prior to your, to the planting. And making sure that, if the space does have irrigation, that you've discussed with either the client or whomever oversees the irrigation, what the right settings are for those new plants. They need water regularly until they are established, especially small trees, small shrubs. Some of the 4-inch pots, some of the 1-gallon pots, once you've watered them a couple days in a row and they're starting to, after the planting, and they're starting to establish, you can sort of taper off. But you're doing big plantings, big trees, big shrubs. You're going to want to make sure that you're watering them every day, at least for a week, bare minimum a week. Often it's 10 days to 2 weeks, a little bit every day until it's fully established, and then tapering off for seasonal adjustments.
Right. And that you were talking about not stomping around in the beds, and that reminded me of what we ran into earlier this week, and that's like ideal weather conditions for planting.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So absolutely, it's always nice to plant a couple days after a rain. Mm-hmm. The ground is softer. It's already got that moisture in the soil profile, so you can definitely, and you can just get in the ground easier. But planting in the rain, there's, I think, a few different conversations about it, and some people say, yeah, plant. But I personally think that it, stomping around in the beds, it creates these pockets, mm-hmm. and it sort of like takes away from the integrity of the bed especially if there's stuff that's already in the bed. Mm-hmm. I personally never plant in like heavy rain. Mm-hmm. There's a term, it's called like mudding things in, and I'm not a big fan of mudding plants in. I think what happens to the soil if you plant in something that's too muddy and you're what we call mud it in, when that soil dries out,
it becomes these like clay-like balls around the plant. And then that tends to crack, and then you have this unevenness, and then air gets in differently. And I just haven't had a lot of success with planting in the mud.
Yeah.
So I would avoid planting in the mud. I would wait, let it dry out. A couple days after a good rain is always a nice time to plant. Also, prepping the area, if you're going to be planting a tree, you know, giving that area where you know that anacacho is going, giving it if it's been really dry out and we haven't had any rain, giving it a little moisture prior to you coming out 2 or 3 days later and planting it, getting that's part of that prep. Getting that area ready, getting that soil a little damp before we go ahead and plant. Not damp, not muddy.
I come through with my planting shovel, which I like to just nickname the baby shovel. This is great because you can really sculpt. I highly recommend everybody who is planting to have one of these because I can really get my sides out of that cone shape and I can scrape and I have this leverage while on my knees. And I get to see the bottom of the hole there. There we go. We're on to something here. Scraping, nice flat surface. Oftentimes you'll come across some roots in there. It's okay, you can snip them out. I don't know where he comes from, but you're not gonna hurt it, whatever he comes from.
I love how you're not wearing gloves.
Oh God, never. I was born with really big hands. They're like my own shovel. At this point, I like to see my hole here. Now, based on experience, I'm looking at this and going, I probably need to be a little wider. Not necessarily deeper, but maybe a little wider. Yeah, I like to feel what I'm doing. Not that you can't feel it with gloves, and some things I use gloves, but no. It's just a part of me that really likes my hands, the feeling of it. Getting this big boy, oh girl, out of his pot. So we want to make sure we have enough room to lie him down. And let's see here. I'll probably do like that on the wall. But really he wants to be up around. There he is. Okay. I'll be alright, buddy. Couple of tricks. Loosening him up from the pot. Get some of that pent up aggression. Give him a little turn, but careful when you're turning. All right. Now, let's see how I want to do this.
Something really important in the garden is you always want to make sure that you move your tools around, keep them out from underneath your feet. You don't want to get hurt. So have them close, but you know, safely close. Now, taking him out, I'm holding him down here by the flare, which is that very bottom here in the pot. And I'm just gonna try to shimmy him out. Excuse my backside. There we go, ready? And I'm gonna try to lift him. There's a deep knee bend. I'm gonna lift and take him out. Move my pot. Oh, he's in good shape. Really good shape.
Nice.
Beautiful soil. Nice fresh new roots. I won't have to clean too much off of him, but I am going to take the opportunity to really look at him on the bottom, see what he's got going on. Yeah. So this is where every gardener is different. I think most of us know that we want to massage the roots, agitate the roots a bit, get him ready for the hole that he's going in. We don't know how long he's been sitting in the pot, so the thing that I like to do is I like to use my hori knife because it gets me a clean cut rather than just ripping. I like to get him on his side, use the pot as stabilizer for the branches, give myself some room. What am I stepping on behind me that I don't want to crush? And I basically take about a 1/4 inch, a little more, probably about an inch. Just get right in there, cut that off. And why I cut it is because it gives me a flatter surface for that flat hole. It's just one of my tricks that I've been doing forever, and I like sharing it with people. You can also use the hori knife. It's great because it's got that serrated edge. You can score sides, top a little bit. Just get that root stimulation going. Activation, stimulation. Now, let's see how I did with my hole. Don't be upset if you have to do it again. All right, we're almost there. We're a little high. You want it to be grade, So this is telling me that I need to dig my hole a little bit more, which is fine. It's also, you can see the lean, it's not flat enough on the bottom. So my hole needs to be flatter on the bottom so that he can rest straight like this and deeper. It's definitely wide enough. I can fit my hand all the way in, so it's definitely wide enough. Just take them out again. You see that movement? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little of my extra dirt. I'm going to go underneath his root ball. I'm really going to jam my hands in there. I'm really going in there, really pushing them in. I sometimes make a fist or just push in like that and just all the way around. Really push them in tight. It's a workout. Okay. At this stage, I also put in a little soil conditioner as I was packing it in. Soil conditioner has a little bit of bat, guano, earthworm castings, humus, humic acid, all these great nutrients. I love it. It works. I also would maybe use compost, not necessarily compost on a brand new planting, but I might a few weeks before amend the bed with compost so it has time to saturate into the soil. I wouldn't suggest doing it right on the plant, right at planting. It can burn the root system. So, it's really important to do a little of both dirts, right? You want what's here in the bed and then your amended dirt. So the dirt here on these Zilker beds is pretty good, I have to say, and it's got a fair amount of aggregate already in it. So I'm just going to add some more of it back into the bed and keep shuffling down, and I'm scratching those top roots. You never want to cover your flare. This is your flare. You want to give that room to breathe. What I'm seeing, these roots here, don't worry about those. Some feeder roots. I'm just going to cover those right up. Rocks in here. Again, getting them in there, really getting out any air that might be in there. You can either use your hand, like I am right now, or what we call heeling it in, or towing it in. It's heeling it in. But just coming around the plant and using your heel to around the plant, tree in this case, really pushing it into the ground. I think we're good. Now, I'm just going to take the remaining dirt that I had here, a little of this, a little of that from the side, one more layer, maybe two. Really just, nice and flush with the ground. And at this stage, we also maybe want to create a little well for the water to kind of fall into. Maybe a bigger tree would be more prudent, but we're fully irrigated here, so I think we're okay not creating a well as long as he gets watered in well. He's going to need water for at least a week every day. Slow drip is always best. You don't want to blast him. He's only just getting used to his new space. Then you want to come back and zhuzh your dirt. Clean up any debris that's around you. Give yourself a nice flat surface again. Try to bring back all that mulch that you pushed aside. I love the way the pecan shells sound.
Me too.
TaraRose, just a second. So you need to keep your mic off while I'm talking. Okay. Okay, just 1 second. So thank you so much. That was so awesome. I think you're so funny. It was really great. And thank you, Katie, for filming it. Oh, I have my camera in the right spot. Anyway, we just have one question, and it's from Lori Dixon. Oh, and just as a reminder to everybody, if you have questions throughout this, send them to me at denisedelaney@austintexas.gov. So this is from Lori Dixon, and she said, do you ever have a problem with crew planting some plants too low? Maybe they plant in the amended soil with the root ball at ground level, but it sinks. My question is, are there particular natives that are extra sensitive to lower planting, or and that you have to plant higher? So I'm turning off my mic so you can answer.
Hi. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, everybody plants a little differently. I wish everybody, but for sure, there's, you know, the agaves, the yuccas, all of those definitely need to plant them higher. They like that, like, they like to be planted up on that little sort of cone and build up the dirt around them. So I also find that in pruning after, being able to get underneath them is easier if they're planted higher and not flush or at grade. I don't know, I try to teach the crew a lot about just making sure that before they set that plant really in the ground, that they have, you know, really, that they can really see that it's securely in there. I check their work. I check the work. It's just what, you know, you can't check everything, but I check the work. I hope I answered the question for you, Lori.
All right, I mean, yes, thank you so much. I think you did answer that question. So, TaraRose, we appreciate all your hard work and dedication, and we just, I haven't seen the garden yet planted, but I'm excited to see it soon. So, we're going to have you log off. Katie, is Crystal ready to go?
Well, we're going to take a 10-minute break after each session, so we will reconvene here at 9:32.
Okay, sorry, I forgot about that.
No worries. Well, we will see you guys then. All right, folks, we're hopping to it. Meredith wanted to give y'all a couple words before we cue up his video about the designer's toolbox. Take it away, Meredith.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Good morning, everybody. If you weren't here yesterday, I'm Merrideth Jiles. I am the Garden Center Coordinator for the Zilker Botanical Garden here in Austin, working for the City of Austin and the Parks and Recreation Department. So one of the things Denise always asks us to do is to talk about how we got into plants. And yesterday I talked about my first job in plants here in Austin. But really, my love for plants goes further back than that. When I was a kid, when I was about 6, my grandparents sold us their house and moved down to South Georgia, and my grandfather started his own farm. And so from the age of 6 till about 15, I spent my summers down on his farm, planting the plants, picking watermelons. We had a small pecan orchard, you know, just doing that kind of stuff. So I think that's really where my love of plants comes from, getting my hands in the dirt and all that with my grandfather way, way long ago. So hopefully you all have a story that, you know, it's the reason that you love plants and why you got into this. And it's a good thing to think about every once in a while when you're slogging through a tough day. Like, yeah, I do love this, and there is a reason. So, also, before we get going, just to let you guys know, this originally was going to be a very different presentation. We were going to talk about some design aspects, but then we were actually going to go look at the garden, and we were going to actually do some design drawing, and I was going to walk around and talk with everybody. And obviously that's not happening this year. So some of this stuff was thrown together pretty quickly. I cannot, you know, if we were in person, I would definitely ask you all to give a big hand to Katie Duffy. She has gone so above and beyond. In addition to organizing all this technical stuff, she became a video producer, as Denise kind of alluded to. And totally unbeknownst to me, she actually also kind of brushed off her acting chops. So you're going to see a short video here in a second that I say we put together. She did everything except for me blabbering a little bit. And then after that, we'll talk about some of the stuff in there. So go ahead and roll that video, Katie.
Thanks, Meredith. All right, here we go. Let me know if you're having sound issues.
Hi, I'm Meredith Jiles, and I am the Garden Center Coordinator for the Zilker Botanical Garden. I work for the City of Austin in the Parks and Recreation Department. And today we are going to be talking about some design basics. First, we're going to talk about building what I call the designer's toolbox, which is hopefully going to be a way to give you some tools to be able to do some great design and kind of know what you're getting into when you start, and let you know some of the pitfalls that I came across. In my day, I actually was a freelance designer and have done a lot of design for a lot of different people. And a lot of the mistakes you'll hear me talk about are ones that I've personally made. So hopefully I can give you guys some warning before you make those same mistakes and keep you out of those ruts. Also, interesting little fun fact, I actually was in the very first Grow Green Landscape Professional class, so I'm very glad to be here today presenting for you guys. So getting started, we're going to talk about what I call the designer's toolbox. So great garden design starts with two key elements, a confident designer and a committed client. Most issues that might arise down the line can be traced back to one of these two areas. A confident designer is someone that is aware of the abilities of themselves and their or someone else's crew. It's not to say that you need to be an expert in all fields of landscape. Just be confident in what you do know and what you can do, and don't overcommit to your skills well outside of your wheelhouse. A healthy dose of riding the edge is good for all of us, especially to keep our businesses and ourselves growing. Think of this, I can ride a scooter, so I bet I can figure out how to ride a skateboard, versus I can ride a scooter, so I bet I can figure out how to rebuild a transmission. As we build your toolbox, you'll gain a stronger understanding of the designer you are and what you can and can't do. If you can't confidently recommend someone, don't. A committed client is someone that knows what they want and trusts that you are the person for them. In addition to knowing yourselves and the skills you possess, it's good to know what kind of people you like to work with. Do you want a clear picture painted for you, or do you prefer someone that is more hands-off and leaves the decisions up to you? Do you want someone that stays in contact and watches over the entire process, or do you want to be left alone to get the job done? None of these are wrong approaches, but they can lead to strife if you work with an opposing personality. Knowing your customer relation skills is as important as knowing your landscape skills. One other note before we dive into the toolbox. Never design for free. It's good to have an initial meeting with your clients, take notes, talk, ask lots of questions, etc. More on this in a minute. Maybe even throw out an idea or two to gauge their feedback. But when it comes time to design, this is your billable skill and you should never give it away. Your dentist doesn't clean your teeth for free in hopes that getting that big root canal at the end. You should never design for your clients for free. You should sell your design to your client before you try to sell the landscape job to them. So let's dive into the designer's toolbox. Each of these steps is designed to build upon one another. No need in starting at a plant list before you've even taken pictures and met with your client. So make sure you follow these steps so that you have all the tools you need when it comes time to actually put pen to paper or whatever you choose to do. Step 1, site plan. Best case scenario, your client has a copy of their plat. This is usually provided in the closing packet when the house is purchased or when major remodeling is done. This is a professionally prepared document that is usually pretty spot on. Be sure it has a reference scale and directional marker. If there is no reference scale, get a few measurements for your own reference. If your client doesn't have the plat immediately available, they may be able to get one from their mortgage company. This does take time and will cost some money, but for a large, complicated property, it's well worth the investment. Now, you can always go on site and take measurements yourself. It's fairly difficult to get angles and such just right, but you can get the overall layout down. Be sure you get measurements for all the major features, the house, drive, patios, pools, pavilions, sheds, etc. Google Earth can also be somewhat helpful in getting an overall layout of the lot and for directional orientation. Never trust your client that says, oh yeah, north's that way, because they're very rarely spot on. Step number 2, get pictures. Go on site and get as many pictures as possible. Take pictures of crucial areas from multiple angles. Make sure your pictures make sense to you, some kind of reference. Mapping them out is one great way to keep your reference. So I'll actually walk around with a copy of the plot or what I've drawn out and write down where pictures were taken from. That way I know what I'm looking at when I look back at my pictures. When possible, take pictures at different times of day. You always have that client that has a place that's shady all day but doesn't realize right in the middle of the day while they're off at work, it actually gets blasted by the sun. So if you have the opportunity to get 2 or 3 pics during different times, that's great. Included in your picture folder should be some pictures from your client. What do they like? I send clients to Instagram, Houzz, Pinterest, and others to get inspiration pictures. While most of these pictures will not be of Central Texas gardens, it can show you what they like and to some extent what they expect. This can be a great litmus test to see if you and the client are on the same wavelength. Step 3, define your goals. Now you have a site plan and lots of documentation. It's time to determine what needs to happen. Hopefully, many of your clients' goals were defined in your earlier meeting, but don't be afraid to go back and confirm your understanding to be sure they are all covered. Add in concerns or opportunities that you, the professional, have identified: drainage, exposure, security, safety, etc. Always keep a checklist of the goals beside your design and tick boxes as they are addressed. Check this several times throughout the process. Step 4, choose your canvas. There are several different ways that you can actually make a design for someone. Pencil and paper drawings have a very personal feel and can be part of your selling point, that you personally went in and drew this. It really kind of lends itself to that personal feel. Another vital tool if you're going to be hand drawing is what's called vellum or tracing paper. This is a very thin paper, and again, we'll show you in a second. Once you lay this on top, you can actually see everything through. You can do your drawing, get all of your landmarks and things like that put in there. Then, again, take something like this that you've drawn on to your local Kinko's copy store and get some copies made so that you have a nice hard paper to give to your client. A few other tools, of course, good pencils and erasers. A good T-square is a good thing to have. And then I really like these little templates. There are special landscape templates that actually have shrub shapes and palm trees and trees and things like that. There's a multitude of these. This one even has hedgerows. So get yourself some tools like that if you intend to do a lot of hand drawing. You can use companies like Kinko's or similar to blow up papers and photos to a working size. 8.5 by 11 is usually not a good working size for a design. I recommend at least 11 by 17. You can also take some of your photos and blow them up and actually use tracing paper to make a rendering. That's a great way to sell a client on something because that really gives them a visual idea. For most of our clients, just looking down on a bunch of plants doesn't really make sense to them. So if you can do a rendering of one crucial area, I think it'll really help you sell a job. Just like the personal touch of pencil and paper drawing, some people like the professional look of a computer design. So it's good to have skills in both. There are a number of computer programs you might use in a variety of price ranges. Google Drawing is free, while AutoCAD is several $1,000s. Now, this is not a product endorsement, but I personally use a software called SmartDraw. It's pretty affordable, it's pretty flexible, does take a little getting used to, but most software does. But I think it makes a nice looking design that looks professional enough, but doesn't cost you a fortune and doesn't look so professional that your clients may get confused. We'll look at some examples of those later. If you can find a software that has a layers feature, this can be your designer's best friend. You start out with a base layer of your scanned plat with your measurements, and then you can add on layers for different structures. For example, you can do a hardscape layer, you can do an irrigation layer, a plant layer, whatever you need. It's a good way to get a full design, but not let it get so busy that you get confused. And you can actually make separate things. Let's say you have a subcontracted irrigator. You could actually just print out the irrigation plan for them, show them what you wanted irrigated. So layers are definitely the designer's best friend when it comes to computer programs. Step 5, load your palette. So like a painter, A good designer has a palette of plants to work with. There are always new possibilities and new combinations, but having a base is the best place to start. In Austin, we are super lucky to have the Grow Green Guide to Native and Adapted Plants as a base to start from. A lovely and very functional landscape can be derived using only plants that are listed within that book. It's always nice to have a signature plant or two, something that lets people know you're the one that did this design. But make sure it's not something that's overly difficult to find. I spent many years as the buyer at a big nursery here in Austin, and there were certain designers, I could tell when their plans came in because there'd be this plant that I'd never seen available, nobody has it. Their client doesn't really understand that. They're like, well, if they put it on the plan, I have to have it. So have a signature plant, but make sure it's not something that's just impossible to find. And just like a painter needs all the basic colors, you'll need all the basic plants. Make sure you have trees that you like, evergreen shrubs, deciduous shrubs, perennial color, grass-like plants, ground covers, etc. Make sure you've got all the tools in your palette that you're going to need. Step 6, putting the brush on the canvas. So I think at first it's best to worry less about the specific plant and more about the function it completes. Once you define that function, the right plant or plants will usually make themselves pretty obvious. Now you should be prepared to justify each plant choice you make to your client. Rarely will anyone ever question more than 1 or 2 plants, but I've almost always had at least 1 or 2 questions about plants, so be prepared. Like a painter, you want to work from your background and then add your details. Start with your hardscape and other structures next to trees and shrub rows, and then work down to the details. This is where layers can be a blessing to a designer. However, if things start getting really crowded on your page, they are also likely getting really crowded in the garden. You might consider a breakout design for highly detailed areas. If you're doing an entire site, you may need to do smaller drawings for the flower beds that require more detail. Step 7, presenting your work. Set an appointment to meet with your client with plenty of time. You don't want them feeling rushed or leaving your discussion early, and you certainly don't want to have to leave early for your own meetings. Come prepared with materials to give them, once paid. First off, a quick sidebar. Get yourself a tube to carry your plans around in. I know this sounds silly, but there's 2 things about this. Number 1, it keeps everything safe. You don't want to be giving your client plans with fingerprints or dirt or something like that on them. Keeps them all nice and clean. But you'd be amazed at how many people seem so impressed when you walk in with this. I've sat down with lawyers, doctors, all different types of people. When I go to show them their design and I pull this thing out, they go, ooh, fancy. I don't know what it is about it, but people really seem to like it. So. I recommend 3 copies of the design, 1 for them to save and 2 for them to work from, that they may hand on to someone else, especially if you're not doing the installation. I would also give them 3 copies of the plant list and 2 copies of your invoice. I usually also email the invoice ahead of time so they can be prepared with a check or pay ahead of time. Before handing the design over to your client, be sure to get your payment. This can be an uncomfortable situation, but after a couple of times getting stiffed, it gets a lot easier. If you choose to credit design fees on install, be sure to let them know that the fee will be credited when the install is complete and the invoice is presented. So one final note on meeting with your client and getting their feedback. I have often encountered clients that say things like, "You're the expert," or "I just want it to look good," and offer very little feedback. While this may seem great, a blank canvas to do whatever you like, it almost always backfires in some way. While I hate to take a conversation negative, sometimes you have to ask, is there anything you do not want, anything you do not like? I once presented a design for a cute little backyard garden that I thought would look great with lots of little white flowers, only to find out that the client hated white flowers. She had told me, do whatever you think's going to look good. but never mentioned her aversion to white. So back to the drawing board. Why I recommend asking your client for some pics that they find on the internet, Pinterest, etc., to let you know what they're looking for. While it may be impossible to recreate what they find, such as a bed full of hydrangeas and azaleas, is a good way to start these conversations. For example, well, those plants don't really work here in the Austin area, but what is it about them that you like? Do you like the form? Do you like the colors, etc.? Even the person that wants to leave it all up to you and has no idea what to do does have an opinion, and they do have a finished picture in their mind. So thanks for joining today. We really hope you learned something, whether you're a seasoned designer or you're just getting started with design. Hopefully I had at least some tips that you can pick up that will help make your designs better and really help you build that designer's toolbox.
So just, I don't think we have any questions. Let me double check real quick. Nope, I guess you covered everything, Meredith. So we're ready for our 10-minute break.
Denise, Meredith has, I think, a presentation he was hoping to share after the video.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me shut up.
That's okay. It's all good. As we all know, we had to change a few things. So yeah, this is just a real short little thing. I'm going to kind of basically go over some of the stuff that I already talked about, but with maybe some other little additional notes and things like that. So hopefully this won't be too redundant. But there's even some things I found since I put that video together. So again, at the beginning, I talk about site plans and getting a site plan. You know, hopefully you can get one from your client that they have from like a closing packet or something like that. We talked about being able to go out and measure if you can't get that, but that can be difficult, especially with large properties or strange shaped properties. And in my research of doing this, I actually found this website called My Site Plan. And from a range of $100 to $200, they can actually provide you with a site plan without going to the property. I'm assuming they're using either Records or Google Earth or I don't know how, but without going to your client's property, they can provide you with the site plan. Now, for one like the one on the right here, I'd probably just measure that myself. That's not super complicated. But you start getting into, properties that are L-shaped or U-shaped and have weird little angles in the back and things like that. I think that would easily be worth $100 to have them go out or however they do it, use their magic to actually get you a site plan. Again, if you're a professional designer and you're charging appropriately for your talents, $100 for that is not that big a deal. So. Pretty cool little thing I found. When I talked about gathering pictures, so here's an example. In the middle here, you'll see this is a map of the area, and you'll see, E2P1. That's so picture number 1. This is where I was standing and where I was facing when I took this picture. And when I took this picture, I was standing over here. And so this is something that I will do because when you're just standing there looking at some of these pictures, you're like, well, is that the back side? Like, okay, well, there's the railing, but then there's a railing on the other side too. Which railing is that? So giving yourself a map like this can really help because the last thing you want to do when you're sitting down to actually do your design is have to jump in your truck and run back over to your friend's house to figure out what it is you're looking at. So it's something I highly recommend when you're doing your pictures. Determining your goals, again, meet with your client, talk, and this kind of rolls in with the picture thing. Some of these pictures here are actually ones I was sent by clients. Somebody wanted this, they wanted this big thing. They did not have the yard for it. So we had to talk about, okay, well, that would look really big in your small backyard. So what is it that you like about this? Do you like the archway? We could do a smaller arch. Do you like the planter? What is it? Come to find out what they just love pink, and they saw that picture and the pink really jumped out at them, and so that's why they chose that picture. So that really helped steer me in a direction. So it's really important to take that time, sit down with your clients and find out what it is they want. This bottom picture here, this client didn't realize that most of these bulbs are not going to grow very well here in Austin, but it did let me know that they wanted a lot of color, they wanted a lot of annuals, they wanted things to look great. So very helpful things. Choosing your canvas. As we talked about, you might choose to do hand drawings. You might choose to do computer drawings. I don't think there's a right or wrong. It just kind of depends on what you're comfortable with. I do think people take computer drawings as more professional, and I'm not saying that to knock anybody that doesn't do them. I just think it's easier to charge what you should be charging for your design if it looks like you spent some time on a computer doing it. And then this picture here in the middle, this is what I'm talking about with the rendering, and I've done this numerous times where I'll actually take a picture of the area, and then I will have that blown up in black and white at Kinko's or somebody like that, and then lay that vellum on top of it, and that way I can know what's there and draw that stuff in, and then I can add the element that I want to add. So for example, the house was here, the trees were here, I knew what those things were going to be, but then you can actually add in the the feature that you want to build. So that's a really cool way, and people really dig that because so many people just don't know what this means. They look at it and they're like, yeah, it's pretty, there's lots of colors, and you wrote a lot of things on that piece of paper. So the rendering can really help a lot. Loading your palette, we've heard Crystal talk about going visit the nurseries. It's the same thing. Yesterday we heard talk about choosing plants. You've got to have a lot of things at your disposal. The Grow Green Guide is a great way to get started. There's a lot of great plants in there. There's some other great plant books for Texas and particularly for Austin in our area. You have to be careful with some books because, a plant guide for Seattle is not going to be super great for us here. But it still can give you ideas. Go to the local nurseries, check things out, and then finally look around the neighborhood. I've never lived personally in an area with a lot of deer, but I've worked in a lot of areas with deer. And, you get to talk to the client, well, I guess we'll use a lot of the lantana. No, they ate all the lantana. So drive around the area and see what are they leaving alone, what's still there, because that's probably what you want to load your palette with for that job. So, putting a brush to palette, again, it's kind of a personal choice. What do you like to do better? I do most things on computer now because it's easier, but I love drawing with pencil and paper. I love all these little tools. I'm kind of a gear junkie guy, so I have way more rulers and pencils and compasses and all that than I will ever use ever again in the rest of my life. I just think they're cool. But make sure you have all the tools you need. And then finally, when it comes to presenting your work, make good copies, make sure they're nice big copies. Plant list, I grabbed one that I could find. One thing I don't like about this is it doesn't have sizes on it. I think you should recommend, especially if you're not doing the install, recommend to your client what size they want to start with. If they are budget conscious, then they probably don't need 3-gallon perennials and 5-gallon perennials, but don't let them also buy a 3-gallon mountain laurel because, as we all know, it's going to take forever to be anything. So, and that's all for my other quick presentation. There's my email address. If anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot me one. And thanks again so much to Denise and especially to Katie for making that fantastic video. I'm going to save that forever and laugh at it every time I watch it.
I love it. Thanks, Meredith. Hey, Denise, I'm not sure if you can see this, but it looks like our chat function has somehow been enabled, and we got a question from Keith Pafford, and he is wondering, Meredith, how do you prefer to charge for design work? Is it by the hour, or do you charge a flat fee?
It actually depends. If I'm designing for someone else, and when I say for someone else, I've actually had landscape companies, landscapers, that were not particularly good at design, but more at install, hire me to do design. I typically do that by the hour. And when I was doing that, which was a few years ago, just to give you an idea, I started at $50 an hour and went up to $75. And I billed for everything. I billed for my time to drive to meet them, time to take pictures, time if I had to do any research work, anything like that, billed for all of that. When I was doing my own design for my clients, I would typically do it, by the job. But by that time, I had kind of gotten a pretty good idea. I would say most of my designs ended up being in the $400 to $500 range, which I think is very low. But I'm not a landscape architect, and I was a design build company, so I think 95% of those jobs that I designed, I ended up getting the job too. And I actually did credit people for the design in the final thing, but I would have them pay up front for that design time. If nothing else, just to cover that time that you are out there working, that, you know, you need to get paid too. So, and I will say, I think it's very ironic. I've had people that really think, wow, $75 an hour for that. I don't know, that it seems like a lot. I find it ironic in this industry that kind of the less hard you work, the more money you make. You know, the guys out there digging the holes aren't making $75 an hour, and arguably are working much, much harder. But as your experience and your time in the industry kicks in, and you start working more in your head and less on the ground, you know, you end up making a lot more money by the hour for that knowledge that you've accumulated. So make sure and charge for that. It took time to learn all those things, so charge for it accordingly.
Hey, Meredith, I had one question come in through the email. And I have to say, I love your background, Grow Green, Get Your Training on your website. That's great. Now, this question is from Kevin Belcher. He would like to know what you think about using drones.
I think that's fantastic. I have not used it personally because, I mean, not that drones didn't exist back when I was kind of a freelance guy. But they were much more cost prohibitive back then. I think that's a great idea. I think, you know, anything you can do to wow your client and sell that job is great. And yeah, if you can get them a video flying over, or you might even be referencing using it for your own reference. I think either one of those is great for your own reference to get that view. Because again, even for us as a designer, especially if you're just getting started, you know, it's hard even for me as a designer. Like, yeah, I'm drawing everything looking down at this piece of paper, but that's not how I see it either. I'm looking at it the way that your client's looking at it, you know, from down on the ground level. So that drone can really give you that overhead shot. I also use Google Earth a lot just because it does give you that overhead shot. Like, hey, what does this look like? You know, what am I doing here? Kind of juxtaposing those two over it. So this is one aspect of it. And then again, if you can include some drone footage, even if it's not the finished landscape, just like people think that's really cool, and they say, "Oh, that's my house. Look." I mean, do whatever you got to do to sell a job. So.
Okay, Meredith, I think that was it. Thank you so much for helping us out again. And we will be taking a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back with Mr. Chris Charles of Austin Water, and he's going to share rebate information, how you and your clients can save money saving water. So we'll be back in 10.
Okay, we can see your screen.
Hey, Chris, are you waiting for me to introduce you? Are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. I can introduce myself.
Yeah, that's what I thought we were doing. So please do that. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Sure thing. Sure thing. My name is Chris Charles. I've been working at Austin Water now for almost 10 years. And today we're going to talk a little bit about water conservation in the landscape and rebates. I just wanted to add a little bit to Meredith's presentation. After his talk, I sort of have flashbacks of me being a designer during the recession a few years back, and I did exactly what he said. I never did a design without payment. But one time, this brings back a memory, is one time I actually had to think about postage, and I didn't put that into the bid because the person that I was doing the design for was from out of state, and she wanted the designs to be mailed to her FedEx overnight. So I had to ask her for 60 more bucks so I can do that. So remember that to try to include everything you can when you're doing those designs. All right, back to water conservation. I just wanted to start off by telling you that we're in the conservation stage, water restrictions. And if things go as the current weather situation is now, or we have a dry winter, we're probably going to be going into stage 1 restrictions next year. That's our forecast. Things can change. We can get a lot of rain, and we will stay in the conservation stage. But automatic irrigation is once a week watering, and hose end sprinkler is twice a week watering. And I just want to make sure that you knew that, because I've been getting a lot of people over the phone saying that they knew that it was twice a week watering when it's not for automatic irrigation. If your even address, it's Thursdays, and your odd address is Wednesdays. Way to conserve water in the landscape. Use more rainwater. Design a water-wise landscape. Maintain your landscape, and maintain your irrigation system. The reason I wanted to pull up this is that you can is that most of our rebates are designed for these ways to conserve water in the landscape. Now we just started. I'm going to need to change the slide, because now we're going to start using some gray water. We just got our first gray water rebate, and we're going to be talking about that later on. Rainwater harvesting. This is a rebate program we have for residential and commercial. A lot of people will go to the home improvement stores and get the rain barrels you see on the right-hand side. And what's really booming right now is the rainwater cisterns. And when I say booming, is that people are going from the smaller rain barrels to rainwater cisterns. They're realizing that they can do a lot more with the water that they're collecting, or they just are using more water now that they've expanded their gardens or something to that effect. So we're seeing pretty much an average of about 1,000, let's just say 1,200 gallons on average. People are going to in residential. Commercial, we get some applications, but residential is really booming right now. And what we're doing here is we're giving 50 cents per gallon for the non-pressurized systems, and $1 per gallon for pressurized systems. And this pressurized systems usually go into the automatic irrigation system. They pump it into the automatic irrigation system so they can get that water and transport it to where it's needed all around the yard. There's a $5,000 max rebate, and for rain barrels that are 500 gallons or less, you don't need to get pre-approval. You can just install it and submit the application with the receipts within 30 days of, it's not purchased, it's actually within 30 days of installation, because sometimes you can buy the barrels and you can buy everything, but it's going to take a while for you to install it. So it's actually 30 days of installation. You will turn in the application receipts, and we can give you a rebate for that. Systems over 500 gallons, that requires a pre-approval. You cannot start work until you turn in site drawing, system drawing, photos of the location that it's going to be put in, and then operation and maintenance guide, making sure that you are aware of how the system operates, or the client, actually, not you, but the client will know how it operates and how they're going to maintain it. There's a lot of people that will go ahead and install these and not tell the client how to actually operate, and they're just given a device that they don't even know that they're going to need to, empty out the first flush or clean it out every so many years. The GrowGreen.org has a fact sheet on rainwater harvesting now, and on the back part of that pamphlet is a couple of pages on maintenance. It's very good. You should really check that out. And with this program, you can only apply once a year. That means once, if you apply like in March, you have to wait till next March to apply for another one. There's a lot of people that will get like a 500 gallon and realize that they really need 1,000 gallons, but we can't do that because we need to analyze the program over 1 year of water use. The WaterWise Landscape Rebate Program is something we've had for a while. We're giving $35 for every 100 square feet that's converted, and basically you're taking out healthy turf grass and replacing it with native plant beds. There's no turf-to-turf replacement, and I get this every year. No, we do not rebate for artificial turf or gravelscapes. And we were talking about gravelscapes yesterday, I believe. There was a lot of maintenance issue with gravelscapes, but there's a lot of heat island effects and other things that we as a city do not support. So it's not illegal, we just do not support it, so we're not going to offer a rebate for it. Eligibility, of course, you need to be an Austin Water customer, a residential customer, or buy water from somebody or is a qualifying water provider, that buys water from Austin Water. You must not have started work, and then you have to, like I said, we're looking for healthy turf grass. The pictures below show one that, on the left-hand side, something that I would not. It's just dead grass and some maybe weeds, some horse herb. And on the one on the right, I might consider putting into the program, depending on what's causing those blank spots. Is it some kind of fungus, or is it a tree shade that nothing will grow underneath of? So it's dependent on what the photos you turn in, and if I can determine if there's if it is healthy and you are maintaining it. Plants must be from the Go Green plant guide. The existing sprinkler systems must be capped off or converted to drip in the conversion area. There must be at least 2 to 3 inches of hardwood mulch. There must be at least 50% plant coverage. We don't want people just taking out the grass, putting it in mulch, and calling it a day. There must be at least 50% plant coverage. And no gravel paths greater than 3 feet in width. We have updated program thanks to some talks with design build people here in town and other companies here in town that do landscaping. We have taken out the requirement for landscape fabric. There was a compost requirement. We've taken that out based upon we believe that the mulch would be sufficient enough for the plant beds. No new automatic sprinkler systems. There's a lot of people that they will convert their landscape, and then they said, well, this is my investment. I want to put in automatic sprinkler system. And we've done the analysis, and there is no water saving, so I can't have a program that doesn't save water. So no new automatic sprinkler systems. And then we've just included a 200 square foot max gravel patio area can be included. This is a very common design element in landscapes here in Austin. And we've been turning down so many people, and it's just 200 square feet. They just want to put a couple of chairs and a little, a table out there for their drinks so that they can enjoy their yard. So we've looked at a lot of programs in Texas and in the Southwest, and we sort of copied the San Antonio water system rebate of 200 square foot patio area. We think that's fair enough for somebody to have that in their design. The WaterWise Rainscape Rebate Program is something that is new, and what we're giving up is basically 30 cents a square foot up to $500 for installing landscape features like rain gardens, as you see here, berms, swales, terraces, porous pavement, and we'll see a lot of those pictures right now, so so you can see an example of what we're rebating for. Again, you need to be an Austin Water customer. We get questions all the time. Can I do this? I'm in the county, but you're not getting water from Austin Water. You can't do it. Please check with LCRA. They mimic our programs. So if you're out of the area and you are receiving water, or your water provider is getting water from LCRA, I believe you're eligible, or most are eligible for their rebates. The size of the conversion area can be small. It could be a 10 by 10 square foot area, or sorry, a 100 square foot area, 10 by 10 feet. And you must not have started work. This is not a retroactive. You have to get pre-approved before you get to the program. Here are some pictures of rain gardens. I included the picture of the rain garden outside One Texas Center on Barton Springs Road. But we're basically just getting that water off the roof, diverting it into an area that can keep the water there for a couple of days before infiltrating into the ground. Berms, same thing. We're sort of allowing the water to collect an area. Swales, the same thing. A lot of people will want to get these arroyos, these dry creek beds. As long as I can see the gutter releasing the water, like in this picture here, into the creek bed, and it's going the right appropriate channels to where it will, collect and then infiltrate. I will not consider that, you're going to try to keep it, 3 foot width, but I will expand that out a little bit to make sure if it's working correctly, so that you get all that square footage for that project. Rainwater terracing, this is basically slowing the flow. Water comes off the house, goes into one built up area, and then seeps down to the bottom area. And you can make a lot of plants happy that way because the water is slowly going down the hill and hitting every single terrace. And it's not running down like it would maybe on the sidewalk where it's just running down the hill. It's actually slowing the flow down so the water infiltrates into the ground. Porous pavement, and I know Dave talked about this yesterday. These are little pavers that will have the gravel fines in between, and basically the water's in this picture, the water is coming down off the roof and just sheet flowing over this drive, which the water will infiltrate into. And then we have some porous concrete that will qualify for this rebate. I know it's not a lot of money if you're doing these bigger jobs, but at least you're getting something back. A little bit is a whole lot, and plus, if you didn't think about these options before, that's what this program is all meant to be about. All right, the next program that we have is the Landscape Survival Tools program, and this is basically just maintenance. We will give you money for doing mulch, compost, or aerating your lawn. And we've just recently changed this within the month that we made it year-round. All you have to do is buy the minimum amount of either mulch or compost. You keep the receipts for maybe the aeration service or the aeration machine rental. You go ahead and take photos of the completed work, and then you turn in the application and receipts and the photos. Real simple. You can get $50 for 2 cubic yards of compost, $40 for 2 cubic yards of mulch, and $30 for aeration service. And you can do that tomorrow. It used to be seasonal, but now we're in a place where we can do it year round. The only issue is that once you do it, let's see here. Once you do it, it's 3 years before you can get this rebate again. You can't get it every year. We're trying to get as many people into the program as possible. And I know some people do this yearly. we want to reward the people that are just found out about this program, not the people that are doing it every year. So I wanted to tell you that yeah, as soon as 3 years is up, you can apply for it again. And here, the next program that we've upgraded, and I wanted to tell you that being stuck here at home, the water conservation team has come up with a lot of upgraded and revised programs. You guys are the first to go out and tell the public about this. We haven't had a big boost in I guess marketing. So we are going to be marketing this pretty hard next year, but we're going to want you as the first line to introduce these upgraded and revised programs to the public. The irrigation upgrade program, you can get up to $1,000 now. Before, I think it was just $400. You can get up to $1,000 now. Basically, you need to submit the application within 30 days of completing the upgraded work. And let me go over what we have the receipts must be itemized with parts and labor separated. We can basically give you $4 a nozzle for the multi-stream loader nozzles. Those are more efficient than the pop-up spray heads. We can give you $50 for a conversion to drip per station. We can give you $50 for a rain or soil moisture sensor. That's only once per site. The $150, I think that went up some money as well for a pressure regulating valve. And then the pressure regulating components, we can give you 50% of the price up to $400. Capping a station, we basically, I think, up that to $100 per station. And then converting the station from 2 to 4 inch pop-up heads to 6 inch heads, we can give you $3 a head, up to $200 for that. The reason why we're incentivizing that is because a lot of times the grass will be up higher than the 2 inch heads. So we want to make sure that pop-up head goes above the grass and not, being as efficient as possible. We also have the hose and timer rebate program. Some of you with the smaller yards and the clients that don't have automatic irrigation systems, this might be something that they can use for their watering. They can hook up 2 hoses to it, and it works just like an automatic irrigation system. It just releases the water at a certain time of the day. We will give you up to $40 for the purchase of one of these timers. You can also hook it up to we just are realizing that if you want to hook it up to a rain water cistern, then you can do that as well if you wanted to try to release that water a little at a time on a schedule. We can definitely offer that as a rebate for you. Pool cover program. We're giving up to 50% of pool cover. See here. Oh, this is a new program here. This is, let me go back to that pool cover. We don't really get too many takers on this, but if you have clients with pools, please tell them about this. Evaporation is a good way to lose all the water. And they even have breakaway pool covers so that, there's not a health issue or an accident waiting to happen with the automatic pool covers. Cartridge pool filter program. This is new. We've seen that you can save up a lot of money, a lot of water by changing it from a sand or diatomaceous earth pool filter to a cartridge pool filter because of the backwash that's needed for the sand and diatomaceous earth pool filters. So we're giving up to $250 to replace that filter system. The laundry to landscape program. that is basically a new program. 2, we're giving up to $150 for the whole get up, as far as the pipes that are needed to get that washing machine to drain into a mulch ring around a tree or a plant. This is a new program. It's a pilot program, and it's basically 75% of the device costs up to $200 of a basic water sensor that you hook up to the meter so that you can get instant alerts on when the water is being used on your smartphone. There's a lot of companies out there making these type of devices, but if you are really wanting to be in tune with your water, especially your irrigation system, how much water it uses or when it's going off, this is a good device to have. Now, Austin Water is going to be going to AMI within the next 5 years. We should all be having smart meters, but here is basically a little more advanced tech that you can have until that time comes. There's some free stuff in our office, but with COVID, when not that many people are coming to our office to get stuff, but we also have sunlight calculators and hose end meters at the library that you can check out. And if they're not at your branch, they can be delivered to your branch in a timely manner. And that's about it. I think I'm right on time. Well, 30 minutes. That's good.
Yeah, that was perfect, Chris, but we do have some questions rolling in.
Okay.
So we're going to do those first. The first one was where to find information on rebates for mulching, compost, and aerating.
All right. Yeah, you can go to our website, which is right here on the screen, and you just look up rebates on the top content, and you go to residential, and you'll see the landscape survival tools rebate program, and there'll be an application there.
Okay, thank you. And then another question is, when you redirect water from gutters, can you use a pipe to divert it if the client doesn't want a rock channel going to the rain garden?
Yes, you definitely could. When we do that rebate for rain gardens, we just look at the square footage of the rain garden itself. If you just did a pipe, we wouldn't use the pipe as any square footage. Now, some people would do the rock channel, which if it's like 3 feet in width, might add a little bit more in square footage for their project. But no, as long as we know that the water is coming from the roof and going to the rain garden, you can get it there any way you want.
Okay, excellent. And then Andrea DeLongamaya asked, is pecan shell mulch acceptable? And then I think she answered it, but she says local byproduct of pecan industry and it works great. So I'm not sure if she was answering a question from someone else. Do you have any comments about pecan shell mulch?
Yeah. Well, besides frustrating squirrels, it is accepted because it will break down. Things that won't break down, like rubber or stone or anything like that, will not be accepted. But pecan shells will break down over time, so we definitely will accept that into the program.
Great, thank you. I think that's all the questions we have for you, Chris, so thanks a bunch. And
yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Break. What we're going to do is take 5 minutes for you guys to take our survey. Katie just sent it to everyone, so if you could just take this 5 minutes to take the survey, we'll come back on. We'll have I have some announcements, and then, or actually, first we'll have the questions for everybody. You can ask questions from the panel. Like we have one already about plant warranty, so we'll post that to everyone. Then I'll make a few announcements and we'll wrap things up. So Katie's going to post a picture instead of the timer, Katie, if you would please put up the watershed picture. I just wanted to give Watershed a little plug, because when we talk about our department, you know, we're responsible for water quality, erosion, and flooding. And when you think about Austin, most of the time you think about water. So I just wanted you guys to think about maybe your favorite water spot in Austin, whether it's Spartan Springs or Lake Austin, and that the things that you guys do out in the landscapes and how you educate your clients helps everybody keep our water clean. That's our goal, is to keep it clean. And Austin Water, they're awesome about, you know, conserving it and the water conservation and low flow toilets. But I'm pretty sure everybody loves Austin waterways, but I just wanted to put this picture up while you're taking your survey, and we will be back in 5 minutes. Thank you, Katie. Katie, are you there?
Yep, I just stopped sharing my screen so you can continue with the wrap up.
Can't hear anything. I heard you, but I couldn't understand what you were saying.
I just stopped sharing my screen so you can continue with the wrap up.
All right. Get my camera going here. So we do have a couple of questions that came in. The first one was originally for Merrideth. Are you still, well, I guess you'll have to turn your microphone on. Lisa Naring wanted to know about, do you warranty plants? And I know you're not in the landscape business now, but did you? She'd like to know, get your feedback on that. You know, when you're selling plants to clients, do you give them a warranty or not?
Merrideth is no longer with us. So Gretchen, I encourage you to email Merrideth. His email is Merrideth, Merrideth.Giles, Jiles, @austintexas.gov, and I'll throw it in the chat as well.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought all the panelists would be here. But Lisa did mention that she does not warranty plants. I mean, there's so many factors. If you don't have the maintenance contract afterwards, then, you know, you have no way of knowing, you know, how those plants will be taken care of. So I'm sorry, Merrideth isn't here to answer that one. Let's see, I have one here. It's another one I'm going to read. This is from Anna Convitt. I'm a gardener and have so many times in people's properties who have contractor work done that the contractors dump paint, water, tile, dust, etc. onto plants throughout the yard. Often they share the love and dump the dirty water onto multiple different plants, which damages the soil and often covers the plants with hard to clean, dried up material. Is the city of Austin aware of the lack of waste management and what we can do as environmentalists and landscapers to educate the contractors on site and clients when they're hiring? Because frankly, I'm not sure where the best place to dispose of these undesirable byproducts would be. Wow, that's a question. Here's what I'm going to say. I don't know if Chris has an answer to that, but I know the people at Austin Resource Recovery are the ones to answer that question. This topic has come up at previous landscape professional trainings, and so I know there's some awareness of it. But Austin Resource Recovery, they're the ones that do all the recycling. You know, they're the ones that, they would really be able to answer that question. After the session is over, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, I can find the person at Austin Resource Recovery who could answer that question for you. So it's one of those, I don't know, but I'll find out. And then I think I have another one that's similar to that. It's about oak wilt on white oaks, and Kevin had asked, can can you please update on how the City of Austin plans on updating their information regarding the Texas Forest Service adjustment on oak wilt spread in white oaks? And again, sorry, another department. April Rose is in the Development Services Department, and she is the contact for oak wilt. And so she would be the one to post that question. I know we've had this discussion, gosh, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And so as far as the plant guide goes, you know, if April approves an adjustment in the in the text of the plant guide, then I would certainly make those changes. We don't plan on printing it anytime soon because of COVID. You know, we probably have 20-some thousand of them sitting in our off-site storage. So we are always welcome to input and updates on the plant guide if you come across things. So Kevin, if you had some suggested comment that you'd like us to change in there, if you want to shoot that over to us, then I could run that past April. But she would be the one to answer that. So let's see. And speaking of the plant guides, someone asked if they could get some. And yes, we actually can get you some plant guides. You just have to come to one text. Well, first you have to let us know that you're coming. And then we have someone, an administrative person that's at One Texas Center. She's not there every day, but like if you say, I want 2 boxes, we'll have her bring them down to the lobby at One Texas Center with your name on it. And then you just go to the back door. If the security guard is sitting at the desk, you just ask him, you know, knock on the door and tell him why you're there. Have your mask on for sure. And if the security guard doesn't happen to be sitting at the desk, the phone number for the security is on the door of the building. So you just call them up and say, I'm here to pick up plant guides. So that way you guys can still at least get those. I also put a link to the new cisterns fact sheet in the chat. I think we have them printed, but we never got to distribute them yet. So it is available online. And as Chris mentioned, it has some really great maintenance stuff and a really nice diagram. And you'll also notice there's a little bit different style to this fact sheet. We have a new graphics person who's going to give our materials some updated look. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Let's see, other announcements. So just thank you everybody for your patience. I know things were a little bumpy today, but I hope you'll cut us some slack on that one. We are recording these presentations, and so when we have that available, we will send you a link. I'm not sure how long it will take. Watershed actually has its own YouTube site now, so we haven't used it yet. I mean, Katie and I haven't. So I don't know how long it would take to get it posted. But either way, as soon as we have the video ready, we will let you know. And with that, I wanted to mention, I know there were some people that were confused about attending both days. I mean, what we did is we took the original one day and split it into 2 days so you didn't have to sit in front of the computer for 8 hours. So if you were one of those people that missed yesterday, please let Katie know. And we'll see if we can figure out something so we can keep you listed. You know, we're trying to be flexible, you know, and accommodate, especially when there's miscommunications. As far as your postings, if you did attend yesterday and today, you will stay posted on the Grow Green website. I don't know if you caught earlier, I mentioned I'm not sure when we're going to do the next Grow Green training because there's so much up in the air. So your posting will stay good until we have the next training. So that's the best information I have at the time. If we have any updates, I will definitely let you know. If you were wanting to get any continuing education credits, either for ISA or TNLA certifications, shoot me an email today. And I didn't hear back from the CEU about ISA, but I'm pretty sure they're going to approve the 1.5 CEUs for David's presentation yesterday. And the new certification person for ISA is Jesse Newman, who works at PAR. So I'm pretty sure, I mean, there's no reason for them not to approve it. It's the same talk. It was just delayed since March. And then for TNLA, yeah, send me, let me know if you need that, and then I'll send you the link, and they just have you go in and sign up yourself for your hours. Let's see, is there anything else? Gosh, I think I'm getting down to the end of my list. Katie, can you think of anything that I missed? I know I'm trying to keep it all straight here. I'm going to check my email one more time and see if there are any last questions. I don't see any.
I think we covered everything we talked about, Denise, so I think we're good. I just want to thank everybody for joining us. This was a huge learning process for us, but really fun. I think that it's going to be really useful for us to just be more familiar with virtual training so we can share out our educational resources with people who can't necessarily make it in person to trainings in the future. So thank you guys for being such a great audience and patient attendees. Sorry, what, Denise? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead. No worries. Classic Zoom interruptions. It always happens. But yeah, so we just want to give you guys a big thank you. We hope you have a great rest of your day. We're getting out a little bit early today, which I think is just fine with everyone. If you guys have any trouble accessing the survey or have any other questions, feel free to shoot Denise or I an email. We're always happy to talk through anything that you would like about the training and otherwise. So that's my sign off. See you guys later. You want to say bye, Denise? I do. Goodbye, Denise. All right. Yeah, let us know if you have any questions. Take care. Be safe. Arrivederci. All right. I'll be passing off the host privileges to Gary at City Hall so he gets the recording, and then I'll be leaving the meeting and we can catch up soon.